this meeting of the Cannabis Control Commission to order at 10:31 a.m. on April 10th. Can I ask, can people in the back hear me? Great. And can I ask, is anybody recording this meeting? As this meeting is being recorded, let me put the public on record that this meeting is being recorded. I would like to ask everybody please to either shut off your cell phones or put them on silent. Thank you. Let me go through the agenda and make some comments around that. We are, as you know, in the middle of a 3-week window to process applications for priority certification. We'll get an update from the executive director on that process. And while we're doing that, we are also planning on the workflow and giving assignments around that workflow for applications for licenses, which will start being accepted on April 17th. So simultaneously to processing the certifications, we're planning for the next step in the process. We're spending a lot of time obviously answering questions and talking to constituents. And while all that's going on, the other thing that we're doing, and we've been doing pretty regularly, is building our team. And so first order of business today is I wanted to introduce our newest team member. And if I screw up your name, I'm going to apologize profusely. But joining us as the Chief Enforcement is Yao GB. And Sean, if you would give background on Yao, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you indicated, Yao GB has joined the Commission as the Chief of Investigations and Enforcement. He comes to us most recently as the Chief of Enforcement for the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination, serving in various capacities within the Commission, also previously serving as an Assistant District Attorney for Suffolk County in a variety of units, including the gang unit.
Let the record show that we're adding one more lawyer to this team.
Things seem to go smoothly.
Appreciate that feedback. So having served as an Assistant District Attorney in Suffolk County in the gang unit, the Safe Neighborhood Initiative, the Major Felony Unit, as well as a gun task force. So a wealth of experience. We're very excited to have Yao join us and get started right away. We have a lot of work for him to do, and he will be hitting the ground running. I'm very confident in that.
Welcome, Yao. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't recall that other people got an ovation after we introduced them. I wonder what it is about Yao. That's a good omen, I think.
Sean did.
Yeah, well, Sean was special. I have some comments I want to make about the priority certification process, but I'm going to wait until we get to that part of the agenda. So let's just jump in. There were one set of minutes for approval, which were the February 27th, 2018, which is a pretty long meeting, if I recall correctly. We just feel as a commission that we'd like to wait until next week to have time to digest those. So I'm going to just skip over this agenda item for today. Next agenda item is 2 additional job postings. Mr. Executive Director.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's 2 job descriptions that are before you for approval. The first is for a research analyst. This would report to the research director. There'll be some news coming shortly on that position and filling that. But this is really a support staff to assist in developing the research agenda, acting against that research agenda, and really executing the mission of the research department as well as the commission overall. So a lot of the description, I think, dovetails very closely off of the director of research job description that has previously been approved and the role posted. So this is really a support position for that and a more junior position to that role, but otherwise it's very similar in nature.
Any comments?
To anticipate your question, it is within the budget.
I've trained you well. Can I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved. Second.
Let the record show Commissioner McBride made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Flanagan. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show the Commission unanimously approved the job description. Thank you. Next.
The second position is for an associate general counsel. The commission is, we have Christine as our general counsel. We also have, again, starting soon, hopefully some news to come by next week, a legal assistant for the commission. This would be the next position within that department. Really a support attorney to join her team, another attorney, Mr. Chairman, sorry to report. And
do we have a running tab? What's the ratio right now?
Not enough.
More than me and you.
Seriously, Jim, we're not doing a very good job here, excuse me, Commissioner.
That said, this is really intended to support the variety of legal needs and operational needs of the commission as it pertains to building out the commission, its activities, its functions, its policies, its procedures, and really going to a role that is, I don't want to say desperately necessary, but certainly one that we anticipated, so it is within the budget and is really meant as a support staff for the general counsel and her team as they build out.
Any comments? Motion to approve? Let the record show that Commissioner Doyle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Flanagan. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show the Commission unanimously approved that job description. Thank you. Appreciate the job you're doing building our team. And I'm sure our general counsel really appreciates the...
Very much so.
Okay, next on the agenda is just to give an update. We're going to go through staff recommendations with respect to some of these applications in a little bit, but right now this is just to give a status report in terms of where we are in terms of the number of applications received and our system performance against that. So,
sure.
Executive Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This data is fresh as of about 8 o'clock last night. And I checked this morning, there's a few more applications that have trickled in, but by and large these are consistent. So there have been 619 user accounts created in the system. Of those 619 user accounts, there have been 448 total applications started in some way, shape, or form. The breakdown, as you'll see here, is that there are 148 applications for RMDs. Again, those are in some way broken up on the bar graph on the right-hand side. You'll see that we currently have 55 pending applications, 24 have been withdrawn, and 69 that are incomplete. And the incomplete is somewhere in the process where they're either waiting to submit information or just haven't fully submitted yet. Related is the economic priority applicants. There have been 300 applications begun in some way. There are 238 pending that have not been submitted as of yet. There are 238 incomplete, 26 pending that are before and submitted to the commission, and 36 withdrawn. So a lot of activity. These numbers have been kind of steadily rising. I think we're at a consistent pace at this point, but there are still folks interacting with the system. It is still functioning, and also is functioning on our back end, so we may begin processing applications, which has really been a significant effort on the staff's part to begin either working, collaborating with DPH to get information over to them, or evaluating the 6 criteria for economic empowerment priority status. So, but again, I'm very confident in the way the system is performing. I'm also very confident in the interactions we've gotten. We've gotten some good feedback that it's really easy to use. The system is easy to navigate, and we're also really able to help folks kind of navigate the system, and we're able to help them kind of triage any issues that they may arise where I forgot my password, my account is locked. Right. We're able to realistically work through those in pretty short order. So I remain confident that the system is functioning exactly as we planned it to.
Yeah, I also want to just compliment the team, particularly Cedric, on the tutorials and the guidance that's on the website. I think it's been incredibly helpful to help people navigate through the process. So thank you for that.
Happy to take any questions that you may have.
Yeah, let me just highlight that this really is a kind of a team effort because of the fact that the 5 commissioners are ultimately going to vote on the recommendation of the staff to approve these certifications. We 5 are not really allowed to be involved in the evaluation of these applications. All we've done is kind of do intake certification to make sure the information is there or indicate if it's not complete. But the team, other than the commissioners, have been working incredibly hard to process this. There's a large number left, so the workload is not going to ease up in the next week. But it's been a true team effort, and is a hallmark to me of what a great startup is, which is that titles and job descriptions are relevant right now, and everybody is part of the processing team, and that's what it takes, and that's what everybody's been more than willing to do. So I just want to thank and compliment the team in terms of how they've handled this. And as I said, I wish I could say it was going to get better, but I don't think that's the case.
Sean, can you talk about, with regard to the applications that are not yet complete, timelines for when those need to be completed by, so that if those applicants want to be part of the certification process, that they are included in the priority certification process? Sure.
Those applications that are incomplete and therefore not yet submitted to the commission would need to be submitted by midnight on the 15th. And the expectation there is, once submitted, we may continue to process and analyze them. We also may, I guess we reserve the right, and I can talk more as we get into the actual certification process of the potential for us to reopen an application to allow an applicant to supplement any information or resubmit. That exercise can continue after the 15th, but we would need a timestamp before midnight on the 15th in order for it to be submitted timely.
So it's Sunday.
Yes.
And I guess it's probably a good point to also add that there are a large number of incomplete applications, particularly on the economic empowerment side. And our philosophy and intent is to help people get those applications completed. We're not rejecting applications because they're not complete. We're going back and saying you need to provide this information. And so our objective here is to try to help as many people as are appropriately qualified to get certified for a priority application process standing.
That's correct.
Is that accurate?
That's absolutely true. Yep.
Okay. I'm sorry.
So I don't know if we're going to talk about this sort of moving forward, but given the number that is out there that is not yet complete, do we feel as though we are going to be on track to be able to kind of move through those in an efficient way? And what's our approach going to be to kind of, if we do see an influx, which I'm hoping we will in the next several days, are we going to be able to get through those efficiently?
My hope is yes, absolutely, and I think what we are doing now in I would say the economic empowerment applications have really, the staff has devoted significant time and energy to those, and what we're developing in the process of going through these applications is a good system, and also I think a good understanding of what types of information is being submitted, and we're also working through it as a staff together, collectively, so that way when we say, for instance, 200 of those 238 applications come in, we can kind of parse out the work, but having gone through many of them together and been within them, there's at least a consistency of review. And also we're developing, I think, good templates we've identified that someone may submit 4 or 5 of the 3 required criteria, and perhaps something is incomplete and we might need some more information. We have a good system now for reopening in that application, communicating with the applicant, and also, and I can share this now, as we will share it with applicants, if we do reopen an application, we are setting a time frame for someone to submit supplemental information of 5 business days to give them enough time to get the information, but also make sure that we have time to process it efficiently and get it to the commission for whatever the action may be, whatever recommended action there may be. So I'm confident we have the ability at this point to get through them, but we are still a small team, and I think we're trying to devote our energy to a number of things, especially rolling out, anticipating the 17th of applications for licensure being available. That is also an exercise, making sure that videos are completed for that, those application packets, which I can discuss in a bit. So we're working through, and I think we're spending the time we need to get a good system in place. Once, should a wave come, I think we're ready to anticipate that.
Thank you. Are there other questions?
Just a brief comment. I want to compliment you and the staff on taking an approach that balances providing applicants with an opportunity to provide a complete application with making sure we're efficient in reviewing them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? So, Mr. Tech Director, there's two more slides. One is the workflow for applications,
Sure.
and the other is the packet for priority certification. Which sequence would you like?
I think we can, the next slide would likely be the licensing, the packet overview.
Okay, great. So this again is no rest for the weary. Once we're done with the certification for priority application processing or standing, then we actually have to start processing license applications. So go ahead, Mr. Executive Director.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This slide, a lot like the previous kind of workflow, is busy, but it also speaks to the extent of information we would be seeking from applicants. And so, as the Commission will recall, the regulations call for a packet system. Our license system, the portal, will accommodate that packet system. So a user would see 3 different packets available to them once the system goes live on the 17th. The first being the application of intent. You see within that kind of bar, there's a total of 14 steps that an applicant would have to go through in order to supply us information. That is deliberate. It may seem daunting, but it's deliberate to make sure that someone can submit information, and then save it and move on to something else if necessary, and that it's not just one streaming application, and allow them to move forward, and also to segregate the information a bit. So we want to learn about the establishment, who the primary contacts are, what the business address may be. If there is an RMD, there's a statutory requirement that we not collect more information than DPH already has, so that's, they can identify themselves there. About the owners, the entity, and the capital, that's primarily information. Those are steps 4 through 9 about who has authority over the entity, any other business interests that they might have, any close associates, and that type of information. Starting at step 10 is kind of the property details, and what type of property is it? Is it indoor, outdoor? Say it's cultivation, for instance. Steps 11 through 14 is really the information about your host community information, what your social equity plan might be. If then that applicant has been a member or a participant in our social equity program, they can identify that there. And also finally the certification that this information is complete as they know it. An applicant could fill out theoretically the application of intent, the background check, or the management and operations profile, and save that information as a complete packet. The application itself would not be complete until all 3 applications are complete and submitted to the Commission, and of course a payment received by the Commission.
So, a question that I received yesterday, the applications will be available on our website or on our licensing website on the 17th.
Sure.
Not prior. Will there be any information on the website prior to the 17th to give people an opportunity to start thinking through what they need to do?
Sure, and I can speak to kind of the logistics or the process. I'll do that now, actually. So the applications will be available starting on the 17th. Guidance will be updated throughout the course of this week, including a checklist for applications, as well as a more substantive kind of guidance piece on the application process and the material necessary. And just like the rollout of the certification process, we will have tutorial videos available for how to navigate this. From a look and feel standpoint, it's the same system. It's just really opening up the applications themselves. And I should also mention that this application, if you create a profile or a username, password within the Mass CIP portal, which is Mass CI portal,
CI portal.
it's like an ATM machine, is those applications will be available to anyone that has a user account. So if the rollout of cultivation or retail being May 1st or June 1st, you could get into the application and see it kind of, I don't want to say mess around in it, but you could open up an application. You would not be able to submit it until that date. So
Start working on it.
you could absolutely start working on it. You could also go through it and identify what information you need. You could also leverage our guidance to begin preparing those materials as well.
That's great.
Those that have an approved certification would be able to actually submit applications beginning on the 17th.
Right.
And this profile will know who those entities are because they'll presumably be applying with,
Right.
they'll get a certification number, but the system will also know that this username and password is certified. And so that will be available beginning on the 17th, and we'll be rolling out guidance as this week rolls on. The second packet is the background check. That's really gathering the information that we would need to conduct a background check on an entity. And that includes, again, about the establishment. You'll notice that because these applications can be filled out in any variety, we are asking for some of the same information in each packet. That may seem counterintuitive, but again, because you could start the background check application before you have your application of intent ready to go, we want to make sure we know who the entity is. And also we want to make sure that that information is consistent across the board. So we want to learn about the establishment, any individual background information, the background information on the entity itself, and then again, kind of a certification that this information is true. And finally is the management and operations profile. Again, about the establishment, the business registration information, so certificate of good standing, DOR, certificate of good standing, the business plan to get information from that, what your operating policies and procedures. This is really going to be the packet where a lot of information gets uploaded to the system, and then again, an affirmation that this information is correct. Theoretically, you could submit any one of those applications, but again, your application is not complete until all 3 have been submitted and an application payment has been received. So that's why there's really a 4th packet that would be created here, which is a payment packet. And that's, you see that it's indicated on the right-hand side. Once that payment is received and all 3 applications have been submitted, that is when we will begin reviewing the application first for completeness, to make sure that all the information is contained within there. That's one step in the Commission's review. and then also evaluating each packet. And again, the fifth packet being, if approved by the commission, that would generate the opportunity for the licensee to pay their application, their license fee.
Are we in a position yet to talk about how people can make payment for their application payment?
We will at least be able to accept a cashier's check, as DPH does for the RMDs. We are also working on developing an electronic payment page. As you can imagine, given the banking constraints on the industry generally, this is something we want to be careful of to make sure that we are able to accommodate a variety of payment or accepting a variety of payments. But we are actively working with the Comptroller's Office as well as Treasury to accommodate a variety of payments. But I would say as a kind of principle at this point, we'll be able to accept at least cashier's checks.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
And thanks to Treasurer and Controller's Office for their help on this.
If there's any other questions, I'm happy to take them. We talked about the process. May 1st and June 1st is kind of a wave, but you could actually get into the system beginning on April 17th. So I would encourage folks to create those username and password and develop those accounts, because as indicated, there's about 600 folks in the system now, and I'm sure that number is going to balloon at some point.
Questions?
So with regard to the guidance on the application process, can we let folks know when that guidance will actually be up and when the checklist will be up? Because I'm sure that there are a lot of people that are going to be interested in learning more about what our thinking is going to be.
Sure, I'm hopeful for today or tomorrow.
So the guidance for the application is up currently, and the checklist will be up by later today.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks, Cedric. Other questions?
And that is a fluid process, so I would encourage folks to visit our website often. Again, the tutorial videos will be uploaded once ready, so that's going to be a rolling process. Also, we have a number of social media accounts that folks are encouraged to follow. We'll be posting that information on it as regularly as possible, and posting it routinely and often as well.
Thank you again to our communications team. Other questions or comments? Okay, the next agenda item then is to review the staff recommendation with respect to a batch of applications for party certification. And I wanted to make a couple comments here, if I could, before we get started. One, as I said, the process has been that this is really a team effort. The commissioners have done nothing other than process some of these to ensure their completeness, so intake review. But until we received the recommendation from the staff yesterday, we haven't done any evaluation with respect to these. So I wanted that to be clear. Second of all, the batch that we're going to review today exclusively includes priority candidates that are RMDs, either provisionally or final approved licenses. There's a pretty straightforward reason for that, which is the certification process for priority applicants is relatively straightforward for RMDs. Literally, they just need to show that they have either provisional or final approval from DPH. I want to thank DPH, by the way, for working with us to corroborate the information we're receiving on these applications, but that literally is the point that we need to corroborate to certify RMDs for priority certification. So it's a pretty straightforward process. The process for certifying economic empowerment candidates is more complex. It's what's in the regulations. There are 6 criteria. People have to meet at least 3 of those 6 and provide supporting documentation for those. And so it's just a more complex process. There's a large number that you saw that are incomplete, so we're going back to those applicants and saying, we need additional information. Here's what you need to help us with. So I don't want anybody to read anything into the fact that the only applicants that we're going to review today are RMDs. It's just literally about the complexity of the process. By the end of this window, the 17th, it will look like the pool of applicants looks like, as opposed to being distorted as it is today with just RMD applicants. So I want everybody to be aware of that. B, as is always the case, we post all of our meeting materials, including the recommendation that the staff is about to make. We'll post that on our website, hopefully by the end of the day or shortly thereafter. I'm going to anticipate an issue, and this might be dangerous, but I think it's appropriate. I'm going to anticipate an issue, which is people that look at that list of applicants are going to see some that are in towns or cities that have either bans or moratoria in place. This is a commission process to give people priority priority certification. All this means is that they have the ability to jump to the front of the queue when they're applying, if they receive their certification. For those applicants that get priority certification but are in cities that have, let's say, a moratorium in place, they can't apply. But when and if that moratorium is lifted and they can apply and they satisfy all of the municipal requirements, they'll jump to the front of the queue because they've received priority certification during this period of time. So I just wanted, just in case people look and say, well, how is this possible, to make it clear that this is in no way, shape, or form in conflict with our commitment to work with cities and towns and to honor moratoria or bans that are in place. But since people will be able to look at this list later on today or tomorrow, I just wanted to anticipate that question. With that, if Mr. Executive Director, you could go through what the staff has done and the recommendations you've made.
Sure. So as you indicated, this is this list is there's 20 applicants before you for approval for certification. That is a list that is growing, I would say, by the day as we continue to work and collaborate with DPH to share information about applicants that are received and reconcile that information with their records as well. So today you have 20 applicants that have obtained a PCR, not necessarily an FCR. We are confident that as this process continues, we'll get more information from DPH, and that is an ongoing exercise. So there's 20 folks. I would also indicate that the information that we have is information that's been supplied to us by the applicant. So whether it's a primary contact or a business address, it's the information that they've supplied. They may have multiple PCRs, they may have multiple FCRs, so that's something worth considering as well. These are entities that have been reviewed by commission staff as well as vetted through DPH and reconciled, so there's a degree of confidence that these are folks that are eligible for priority certification. That would therefore be our recommendation that the commission approve their priority certification, their application for priority certification. And if that's the commission's will, I can also speak to our process for economic empowerment applicants and how we are going about reviewing them. I will say that a lot of the applicants, there are I think 26 or 27 as of right now, a lot of them have taken a significant amount of time and energy to put information together, to compile information for us to evaluate and review, and that their efforts are being met by efforts on the commission level to review them in a thoughtful, substantive way and evaluate them really with an eye toward encouraging and securing certification. So that is, from a commission standpoint, from a staff standpoint, that has been the predominant effort for our review. The RMD process is a bit more automated in the sense of extracting information, sharing it with DPH, reconciling it, and getting it back. And I think that's why we're here today with 20 for approval. There are probably, as of last night, I could have theoretically brought 5 or 6 economic empowerment applicants forward for commission review. I also want to make sure that I'm able to supply the commission with information that you can evaluate in a thoughtful, substantive way as well. But given that this information is going to be available publicly, I want to make sure we're careful about that information too. So we are working through logistics on that and how to best supply information, but also trying to give each applicant a substantive, thoughtful, fair review and evaluation. So,
at the risk of stating the obvious, there is absolutely no benefit to being one of the first approved for priority certification. Anybody that gets approved within that window is on equal footing.
That is absolutely the case, yes. And so from a sequence standpoint, beginning on April 17th is when folks can apply. As we indicated previously, that application is substantive. It will definitely take some time as well. And similarly, the commission is not able to issue a license before June 1st.
Right.
So evaluation will be ongoing throughout that sequence.
But it's safe to assume that at our meeting next Tuesday, we're going to have a longer list.
That is absolutely the case, and it may also be my recommendation to consider multiple meetings next week in order to accommodate a number of batches that I would anticipate bringing forward, both on the RMD side as well as on the economic empowerment side.
So we'll talk about that.
Yep.
That sounds like a reasonable plan.
So next week is shaping up to be a busy week for the commission, as every week has been. So again,
so back to you, recommendation, please.
Sure, there are 20 applicants before you in a spreadsheet form. Those RMDs have secured at least a provisional registration from the Department of Public Health. That information has been reconciled, and it is therefore the staff's recommendation that those 20 applicants be approved for priority certification.
Discussion? Questions?
So when an application, and I'll speak to RMDs specifically, when an application comes in, and of course they're already parsed out between economic empowerment and the RMDs, and those are two really different application packets in a way. When an application comes in, it is reviewed for completeness first to make sure that information is at least able to be reviewed. And it's not so much that this information is accurate and can be reconciled. It's more, are the fields filled in? Are there documents uploaded? And is there anything that would kind of jump out to any reviewer to say, this information seems either invalid or perhaps even illegible. So once reviewed for completeness, it is then moved forward in a queue, which is then the substantive review is this information is reviewed by a staff member to say, did they submit a PCR or an FCR? If so, can that information be shared? Can the license number, so if it's an FCR, there is a license number, can that be reconciled with DPH's records? We then create what is essentially an Excel file, an extraction of that information, and share it with DPH and ask them to reconcile, is this the entity that has received an FCR or PCR? And that is really the process that is ongoing on a daily basis at this point. And it's really getting information to DPH, also bearing in mind that they too, this is not that it's a burden on them, but we're asking them to take time out of their day to reconcile this on our behalf. So we're trying to make it as easy for both of us as possible. That information is reviewed by DPH, reconciled, returned to us with, yes, this is the FCR, the PCR, it is valid as of this date. And then we go through another review to check the business information to ensure if they gave us a certificate of good standing through either DOR or the Secretary of State, we reconcile that. If they gave us any tax ID or business identification number, we check that against the Secretary of State's office as well. And if everything seems in order, it is therefore prepared in this batch for your evaluation as well.
Any other questions, comments? So you're asking the commission to approve the batch that was distributed last night?
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Can I have a motion to do so? Sorry, Commissioner Tattle.
Just a quick comment that I'll be abstaining from this vote just because I have a former client on the list. I don't
Okay.
know if I'm.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Brett?
I don't know if it makes sense to read the list. Does that make sense so that people know?
It'll be posted tonight. We won't see this. I thought the plan was to just post it tonight rather than do this right now. We've all seen the list. Is that all right? Sure. So the recommendation is not to go through them one by one, but to approve the entire list of recommendations from the staff.
Right, we're approving it just as certified.
Just as certified.
Right.
Yes, party certification, that's all. So with, can I have a motion then to approve the list that was submitted by the staff last evening?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Let the record show that Commissioner Doyle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Flanagan. All in favor? And
Should roll call.
we should do a roll call since there's an abstention from one of the commissioners. So all in favor?
Roll call,
Yeah.
certainly.
Yeah, start with you, I'm sorry. Good. Commissioner McBride?
Aye.
Commissioner Doyle?
Aye.
Commissioner Flanagan?
Aye.
Commissioner Title?
Abstain.
Commissioner Hoffman, aye. Let the record show that the vote was 4 to nothing in favor with 1 abstention. The votes in favor were Commissioner McBride, Commissioner Doyle, Commissioner Flanagan, Commissioner Hoffman, and Commissioner Title abstained. Thank you once again for the great work the staff has done here. And we will convene later today or tomorrow and talk about what the meeting schedule for next week should be based upon your expectations of
Sure.
volume and timing.
So what from here, what will happen is this information will be posted to the Commission's website. Also, the portal, we will go into the system, given that the Commission has formally approved this, and indicate that step. So anyone that is on this list should be getting an email explaining or indicating that there's been an approval and they are therefore certified.
Okay.
And this list will have access to the system on the 17th.
Okay, and we will post this list on our website either today or tomorrow.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, there being no further business in front of the commission, and I would like to adjourn this meeting. Before I do so, though, the next meeting is right now scheduled for next Tuesday, April 17th at 10:30 a.m. Same place, the commission offices. We will, as I said, update within 24 hours the schedule if we need to change or add much all.